Every time you come in, let me no matter what happens. Turn
So that's why I share with you, it's the Iowa Library newsletter.
Sure.
It's just upcoming events, things happening in Ionia.
Absolutely. No, I didn't. I'll put one on the bulletin board out here, that's all right.
I had all kinds of last night.
Is this right?
Oh, yeah. Most, I mean, like this morning, my son called me, I was in short, because I wanted to get up here. I didn't think they, I'm surprised they haven't it in here, but with the crowd there.
That's what was
But I
proposed.
had 2 calls this morning.
And the second one is over in the cap. Okay, that's where I was just making sure that we were.
Nope, I am the library director in Nashville.
Start out a little bit.
That's what I should be, down the, almost suffocated. That was some of the.
And I should know your name, but I'm drawing a blank.
Dorothy, but, yeah. I got to talk to you about it.
Yes, yes, you used to sell chocolate.
Yes, I did check.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
See,
Yes.
the connection was there.
Wonder
Name
right.
wasn't.
Yeah, I still order some.
Oh, really?
Yeah. This is a wonderful product.
Thank you.
Got 9:01, I'll call this April 14th Board of Supervisors meeting to convene. A roll call, all members are present, along with Board Secretary Sheila Shackleton. Is there a motion to approve the agenda for April 14th?
So, second.
Motion by Scott, second by Travis to approve the agenda as presented. Any discussion? Not hearing any, all in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed, motion carries. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from last week, April 7th, that was in your board packet?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Motion by Travis, second by Isaac to approve the minutes of April 7th, last week's meeting. Is there any discussion? Not hearing any, all in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carried. Anybody have a committee assignment that's short? Travis?
We had a workforce development board meeting, special one on Thursday, the 10th. Basically to approve a single art company. And then they want to do it for 5 years. And it was approved. And then the North Iowa juvenile detention on April 11th. Went over the budget, approved the budget. Chair, vice chair, and secretary, and committee members were out, but not paid. That's pretty much it.
All right, thank you. Anybody else have a committee assignment last week, or? All right. Nancy, did you want to talk about the budget hearing or public comment? So today's our public hearing. Every citizen and property owner of Chickasaw County can speak at 9:10 of our total county budget.
Just a question about the budget. I
Yeah.
understand we're having a deficit now in our county budget, the budget you guys have been
Yes.
working on,
Yes.
the budget that has resulted in positions being nixed.
Yes?
And how much is the deficit now?
Still about 300,000 from expenditures and revenues.
Okay, and what was the budget when you took over as chairperson? What was the deficit or the positive?
That doesn't change.
So we were still $300,000.
So the last couple of years, we've been using the ending fund balance to take care of that deficit.
So you've been borrowing from Peter to pay Paul
Exactly.
all along, and now the time has come to pay Paul. Or to
Yep,
pay.
the expenditures are too high. When you're out of money,
You're out
savings
of money.
account. Correct.
So when was the last time?
We've had a balanced budget,
Mhm.
probably for a very long time. So revenues are unthinkable. We don't know what's coming in from the departments. Those departments are the ones that put on paper what they expect to bring in. Sometimes they bring in more, sometimes they bring in less.
Correct.
We can only tax so much on general basic levy rates.
So,
Property tax cannot sustain the growth, the expenditures, the money.
okay, and I realize this is $1 million question and hindsight is always 20/20. Why was it decided that robbing from one account, borrowing from one account to pay another account was the decided way to go?
Because we had enough money in the general fund to borrow from the ending fund balance.
But seeing that fund, you can only dip from the well so many times and the well goes dry.
That's why those cuts had to be done.
But didn't you see that 2 or 3 years or many years ago?
I've seen it a lot. Go back to the votes. You can probably see my no vote a lot, and I get criticized for voting no on things.
Yes, I
Yep, that's
thought
common.
that.
So let's blame the rest of the board and prior years for voting yes on things.
I'm not here to place blame.
No, I'm not either.
I'm here to fact find and
You are.
figure out how we got into this position that's affecting our public.
And House File 718, that's in common law that we've been using for the past 2 years, where the state of Iowa is restricting growth. If we grew this county tax base by more than 3%, we would have took a decrease in general basic from $3.50 down to a 3.4. So we would have collected less dollars if we had to roll back.
Okay,
All while prices of goods have increased more than that, 3%, so.
Yeah, it's county engineer.
so what were other options previous years to correct this? Again,
Lower wages, yeah, I can
Raise
see.
taxes,
What?
raise taxes.
Raise taxes on GS, and that was done by, 70 cents last year? So GS is only very specific to benefits roughly in elections. So the board did raise taxes 70 cents on every property that pays into GS
Yeah,
to fix the benefit shortfall. We can't raise taxes on general basic. That's our biggest pool of property tax.
so were benefits looked at being cut back then?
There was a change, July of '23 that enacted a big increase to general supplemental by giving more back to family health insurance. And this board voted 4-1 to give that back.
Meaning
Meaning that,
were cut.
go back to the record again, I asked for a budget impact of that decision that day, that they'd still voted, sorry guys, they still voted 4-1 to give back that family health insurance without even having it in the budget. So that's why GS went up 70 cents last fiscal year to cover the shortfall that they took out of the savings and to move forward.
So that still would be an option of a place to be cut.
It is an option, we've talked about it many times, if we wanted to change the handbook.
But that's a different fund. So the fund that you're concerned about is what we call general basic.
Thank you.
No, thank you. All right,
Can I ask a question?
Is it more budget talk? Because we're gonna open the public hearing very shortly.
It's a short question.
Okay. Go ahead.
How did you determine the percentages on these different areas? I don't understand why some get a huge percentage cut and others a smaller. How did you make that determination?
I can answer that in the public hearing. Thank you. All right. I got 9:10, public hearing for the fiscal year 2025 and 2026 county budget. It has been published in the New Hampton paper, the National Reporter, on April 3rd and April 4th, I believe. Is there a motion to enter public hearing?
So. Second.
Motion from Scott, second by Travis, to move into a public hearing for fiscal year 2025 and 26 county budget. Any discussion? A roll call, Scott. Travis.
Aye.
Isaac.
Aye.
Steve.
Aye.
Jake. Aye. Motion adopted 5-0. Any written comments, Sheila?
Nope, I haven't received any, and I'm just gonna check one more time.
Any public comments? I did not ask for, I guess we got a sign-in sheet. I guess it's open to any, like I said before, any public citizen of Chickasaw County that lives in Chickasaw County or pays property tax in Chickasaw County per state law. So I guess we'll just go around the room. Please be polite, courteous, and if not, we still have open meeting laws that we follow. So I guess I'll go around the room. Joan, do you want to go first? You got anything?
Yeah, how did you come up with, first of all, in your general basic, is there any more, or in general supplemental, the biggest fund that you have? You reduce the according general supplemental to $1.85 according to, compared to what we are taking out, correct?
Yes, Joan.
Okay, and the general basic is still a max. So if this budget gets passed today, so everything that the departments have entered into, that is gonna be approved accordingly, according with what they have. That includes the wages, everything, and their,
Just to answer that, wages are determined in June when we pass a resolution for wages. Today, I believe we have in front of us a resolution for elected officials. And you know how state statute works for deputies below those elected officials.
correct. So are you going, the question was asked years ago, way back, one of the questions, I believe, one of the board members from prior years. Are you gonna change the deputies to assistants or clerical or, because that is still your prerogative, and there is a bill in place, I don't know if that's has been passed or not, where the percentages are gonna be taken off. So you could have a deputy, if you keep the deputy, instead of 85%, they could be making just a grade lower than what the elected official is making, correct? If it passes.
If that law passes, Joan, I've not seen it. We discussed this. You talked to me last week about this question,
Yes.
so. I believe our current county attorney opinion is we set the number of deputies per office. And in reality, that means we set them as clerks, associates, assistants, deputies. I guess to answer your question, if I'm not answering it, the deputies are in the budget as is.
Okay, so then if it passes again, are you gonna, so if this requires, it's gonna be, so it'll pass then as is, so there won't be no talk about changing them to what the department head has in their budget, correct?
Remember, they can use their own budget once they get the appropriation.
Yes.
Well, my opinion is they can change that at any time. I mean, I think it would be somewhat counterproductive to vote next week to change it effective May 1. I think it should be effective either July 1 or January 1 perhaps. But my opinion is they can decide anytime. They can take that up in May, June, anytime to decide to change and get rid of all the deputies. Well, there's only a handful left.
Correct.
But my opinion is they can change that at any time. It's not part of the budget process. They can decide anytime outside of the budget process to do that. That answers your question.
Thank you.
Yep.
Is there any, other budgets within the general basic that you can look at reduction? I don't care, general basic or any other budgets besides what you have looked at? Can you further decrease any of those?
Yeah, I think-
Any expenditures to cover up your $300,000 deficit then?
I think they were all looked at, Joan. I think that's why we decided to decrease the revenues in departments. We asked, I can name mostly all of them, you know, county conservation to land use to public health, environmental health,
The buildings.
all the buildings. You know, we slashed a lot out of those nonprofits, non-county departments. Community action requested, I believe, 30,000 roughly. They're only getting 10,000. A lot of those other ones have been cut. 4-H to Soil and Water District to Big Four Fair, they all got cut, some by 50%. Some totally. Foster grandparents got cut 100%. They are not getting any funding this year. So those all came out of GB kind of, Joan, I guess to answer your
Okay,
question.
but I mean, is it possible that you can look at other ones? Because like this year you have, if you're reducing your budget due to the cuts, you have asked the taxpayers this year more revenue or more taxes than next year, correct? The levy rates, since it was $1 something, it's $1.85, so you could have probably, I'm saying the taxpayers are paying more this year.
So the tax asking for the county-wide, this includes GB, GS, and RSP, rural service only. $150,000 of new money coming in from property owners. Some of that, though, is due to new construction. I have not specifically figured out where the 150,000 is coming from. It's coming from GB. Just because evaluations went up. And then some of our debt went up and some of the Pioneer Cemetery went up. So that's in turn is part of the 150,000 new money compared to last year.
I'm just asking you to look at it one more time, that's all I'm asking.
Yep.
Your final approval on the department budget, to see if there's any more money you can probably cut.
All right, thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Anybody else? India?
Hi, I'm India. I work for Academy Community Library. I know you guys are up against rocks and hard places with the House File 718, the kind of uproar about increased property taxes. And so I'm just here to find out what you guys are able to allocate for the libraries at the state. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, so our final decision was $124,338.
And when was that made?
What was your question?
When was it made? So that's what's in the budget, India. That number came up probably, 2 months ago in a budget work session to figure out the RSB levy rate. And that number goes back to the fiscal year of 22, 23, 23, 24.
I don't have the previous year's numbers in front of me. What percent change is that?
So this current year at 131. So it's a decrease of looks like 6%.
Everything's up my shirt.
Anything else, India, or,
Somehow missed the memo.
okay,
Thank you.
anybody else?
I
Nancy?
have a question about the buildings. I I know it's been mentioned before, the huge back building and the heritage building. Is there a reason those two, have not been combined for services? I've been in both of those buildings previously, and I can't imagine that two departments completely fill the huge back building. And I would think that there's room in the heritage building
Yeah,
for two
there
more
is.
departments.
I would agree there is.
So why do we have a duplication of buildings?
We will be looking at selling one of them or moving people around. There's more than just two departments in the LEMC, Law Emergency Management Office. The auditor has storage there, the clerk of court has storage there. PMA has storage there, 911 has storage there, I'm missing some, county custodian has stuff there. So the building's pretty full, is what I'm getting at. Yes, there's only three staff members that work there.
Couldn't you store stuff at heritage?
We can, yes. It all takes time.
Okay,
I know that's part of my plan moving forward.
to sell the building,
So, one of the buildings, yes.
because I'm sure that was not just the $20 expenditure in the budget. That
No,
would
that-
get back
I don't know that
some
building off the top of my head.
Put money back
That'd be
in
49.
a budget.
So 49 is 39,600.
40,000-ish.
And
No.
which budget would that go into?
It just stays in the general fund, general basic. I believe that whole thing is general basic.
So it's the heritage, the public health.
So that would make a positive difference.
It would.
And when was that bought?
Oh,
That's good for me.
22, maybe? 21, 22?
Okay.
Thank you. Mary, did I answer your question yet? About how did we come up with it? I want to be fair.
No,
So, a blanket statement, I let this board let every department head give their wants and needs in January, February. When we saw on February 4th, I believe, the total number, it was alarming that we were over 1.1 million that we've cut so far from that date. We let some of the department heads figure it out themselves. We helped some of the autonomous boards, I guess. Chad, I'll put you out there. We worked together trying to cut equipment, cut a summer helper. Their board did agree to that. And then the board, you guys saw the paper, we made comments to have layoffs in the sheriff's office, auditor's office, and the treasurer's office. Those are the only three offices we control with the cuts there. And then we told the Board of Health, which is their own governing body, to cut, Scott, help me out, 374? 358,000. That number, to get us down to more of a budget, a balanced budget, we knew we had to still cut 300,000 roughly from the budget yet. I guess I felt we've cut a lot out of offices that only have one or two or four or six or four. The budget is mainly, and we looked at this, all of you, 80% roughly is wages and benefits. So you can cut material out of budgets, but it doesn't add up to staff. You know, we have less population in the county, less interaction of people. When you have less population, I guess that's my opinion why the cuts had to be done where they were done. Anybody else want to speak?
I would like to speak on behalf of public health.
Yeah.
I really think they're taking a terrible cut, and I think there's a real strong need in this county for them. My goodness, we have how many elderly people the public health keeps them out of nursing homes and in their own homes and lets them have a better life. If there's issues within that department, then fix the issues, but don't cut back on so many people that the voters can't be served. I know one, for instance, a friend, they had to stay in their home, the nursing home wouldn't take them. They couldn't have done it without public help. And that's just recently, and I'm sure just because I know one, there's a lot more. I really feel very strongly that that budget is being cut too much, and that that's a service we truly need in this county. Thank you.
23% of Chickasaw County population by 1923 statistics is age 65 or older. I know you're young and probably think you're never gonna get there, but everybody gets there sooner or later, and that is the population that is most at need and is most vulnerable and needs public health more than anybody else in this room. To support Mary's claim, having worked in healthcare all my life, those are the people that we send referrals to 800 places to get them help so they can go home. And if they don't have public health, then it falls on the family. And I look at you young men and Sheila, and you all work, I'm guessing, at least 2 jobs besides, or 1 job besides what you're doing here today. Do you have time to go home and dress mom's moon 3 times a day? Or to take her to doctor's appointments every week? Or, everyone is busy. They don't have time for these things. That's where public health comes in once a day or once a week or whatever. So I have to agree with Mary, it's a needed service. And I think as a county, we're doing everybody an injustice not to have them as they were.
I would like to speak, I'm pleading with you to allow the more public health. I went through my neighborhood and just up and down the street thinking, and out of 2 blocks, there's 2 working families. And I've been fortunate, I haven't needed a public health nurse, but I have many friends that do. And many of us don't have children living in the area. So I would like you to reconsider. I think there's ways of cutting budgets other than this. For one thing, the heat in this building. And we have, like you say, I know it takes time to eliminate things, but we really need the public health. So,
And if I may say, it's not just the elderly.
no,
You probably all, I'm not familiar with some of you, but you probably all have children. What if it was your young 20-year-old teenager, 30-year-old child that was in a severe accident? And they needed someone there every day to come in, or at least part of the day to bathe them, to just do human needs. It's not just the elderly, that 23%, it's the young people too that need this service.
It's very true, Mary. They're saving more and more low birth weight babies that grow up to be toddlers and young adults that are dependent on mom and dad in the county. And it's our obligation, if medicine has saved these children, we have to take care of them. That's a good point, Mary. Or the brain injured young adult.
Yep, I get it. So just to let you guys all know how public health works is we gave them a number to get to. It's up to the Board of Health. There's 5 Board of Health members. We actually have one in the room. Joan is on the Board of Health. It was their call to cut staff and or areas on the financial and bring a budget back to us, what we asked. So, Joan, I guess since you're here, you laid off
We laid off in aid,
in aid,
in nurse, and office help
correct?
upon the recommendation of our director.
So you
yeah.
still have 12 people left.
Yes, we do. And then we also made an environmental health specialist from full-time to part-time, 30 hours a week instead of 35 hours. So in turn, we had to cut the revenue also. And the director has notified the providers and working with the providers that we no longer can serve those clients. And we are sending out letters to them also. So we are trying to find these people, the clients, that still have to have the service. So she's really trying to find another person to take care of them.
So my point is, public health and home care is still here, running a $1 million budget, over $1 million budget. They still will be serving the people of Chickasaw County, a little bit tighter employment.
Also, the radon testing program has been cut. Is there an alternate place we can get radon test kits?
Yeah, you can get them at Ace Hardware.
There's a flyer that she's working on to, talk to Derek Lechtenberg or Lisa Welter, and she can give you some alternatives. And she's also put on a whole website that she can look at those.
And
John,
when was
go
the
ahead.
decision made for the raises for the board?
We're freezing ours. It was decided 2 months ago, maybe? Yeah.
Okay, just wanted to-
Yeah, we are not taking a raise. Any other public comment? Kathy?
Department heads, will they get a raise? I heard.
Department heads. Elected officials, department heads.
No, like treasurer, auditor, those people.
Elected officials, yes, it is in the budget to get a raise.
Why can't they freeze their wages?
It's a good question.
And if the supervisors are, why can't everybody? I mean, who decides that they get a raise or they
We
don't?
do, the 5 of us.
Some departments have a union as well, that's fixed. So you have some departments where you have 90% of the department is union getting a fixed for certain wage increase. So you have other employees in that department that aren't part of the union. So I guess in regards to secondary roads, I put a 3% in based off of the first board recommendation.
All right, any public comment from citizens or property owners? If not, is there a motion to close the public hearing? So. Sorry. Motion from Scott, second by Isaac to close the public hearing. Any discussion? If not, I got 9:32. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thanks for your comments. We still have an open meeting, so moving on down through the agenda. See if Elizabeth is here. We have a time slot of 9:30 for our private auditor to give us our audit report from fiscal year 23-24. If you guys are leaving, please sign out so we can have that on the record of what time. Yeah.
Please let them know, Jake, you're gonna come back and consider the budget resolution after you finish with this, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so they'll vote on the budget, so I don't wanna get ahead of it, but you're still planning on voting on the budget today, correct?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Good morning, Elizabeth.
Good morning.
I got 9:33, meet with Garner and Company, Elizabeth, CPA. Good morning, Elizabeth.
Good morning.
Discuss the fiscal year 23-24 audit report.
Good morning. Does everybody have their books?
I gave it to you.
Yep.
Okay, we're just gonna go through, hit the highlights. I guess let me know if you have questions. This is the audit report for the fiscal year ended June 30 of 2024. We're gonna start on page 2, which is Gardner and Company letterhead. And just to start off, the purpose of an audit is to opine on whether or not the financial statements are fairly presented. An audit has nothing to do with finding fraud or finding errors or irregularities, and it's not designed to do so. The audit is designed to go ahead and provide an opinion based on our tests on whether or not the financial statements are fairly presented. The audit is based on tests and samples. We don't look at every single transaction that goes through the county during the fiscal year, and then we issue our opinion based on the results of that test work. So on page 2, On the Guardian Company letterhead, we have our independent auditor's report. And for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2024, we have issued an unmodified opinion, which is what you want to hear. That means that we believe that the financial statements are fairly presented. Now, during the course of the audit, we did find some material adjustments that need to be made. So we proposed adjusting journal entries, which were recorded by the county so that the transactions were properly included in these financial statements. So the rest of this independent auditor's report just goes ahead and talks about how our audit is based on tests and samples. It talks about the responsibilities of management for the financial statements. Ultimately, these are Chickasaw County's financial statements. Sheila has to take responsibility as the county auditor. She's the one that gets to assume the responsibility for the financial statements. She's the one that makes the decisions whether or not we make the adjusting journal entries. On page 3, we talk about the auditor's responsibilities for the audit. Our responsibility is to provide reasonable assurance, not absolute, because again, we don't look at every single transaction that goes through the county during the fiscal year. We do exercise professional judgment and maintain professional skepticism during the audit. We do a lot to identify risk of material misstatement. This year, we had to implement a new auditing standard in regards to risk assessment. So both Matt and Sheila had to suffer through that process. We did a lot of extra internal control work, looking at what you have for inherent risks, what you're doing to mitigate your control risks, and ultimately go ahead and then design the audit based on the results of those assessments. So this page just kind of goes ahead and describes that process. Page 4 of the independent auditor's report goes ahead and talks about the required supplementary information and the supplementary information that's included in this report. And then we get to the management's discussion and analysis, which starts on page 6. And the following pages give some financial highlights. They talk about what's included in this annual report. Chickasaw County does present 3 separate sets of financial statements because you budget on the cash basis. We show a budget to actual on the cash basis. You're also required to present modified accrual, which is the GAAP report that is submitted to the Department of Management in December. And then we also present a full accrual set of financial statements that includes all of your capital assets and your obligations. So this goes ahead and explains all of that. The following pages show some comparative information comparing fiscal 24 to fiscal 23. It also gives the county an opportunity to talk about the budgetary highlights. What did you do for budget amendments? Why did you make budget amendments during the year? And then it also gives the county a chance to talk about the economic factors in next year's budgets and rates. So as the county was starting fiscal 25, there's a chance for the county to talk about what the expectations were, what the levies were doing, pretty much provide any information on that budget process that you wanted. So the actual financial statements then start on page 13. And Exhibit A and Exhibit B are the full accrual financial statements. So this would be most like what you would see in the private sector. So we do have a statement of net position that includes the county's total assets, including your capital assets, total liabilities, including your long-term obligations. On page 15, we have the statement of activities, which is again, most like the income statement you would see in the private sector. And for this fiscal year, the county did realize a change in net position of almost a positive $8 million. Now, a good chunk of that is due to the farm to market projects that were going through the Department of Transportation. So there was about $5.6 million of infrastructure and infrastructure process that is added to your net position based on what was going through your FM account at the State Department of Transportation there. The county also continues to expend down that American Rescue Plan funding. Any questions so far? Okay, so then we'll go on to Exhibit C and Exhibit E. Those are your modified financial statements. Again, this mirrors the GAAP report that is submitted to the Department of Management. We do present the general, rural services, secondary roads, debt service, and capital projects as the major funds. And then we also have a column for the non-major funds. And so those smaller governmental funds are aggregated and presented as your non-major. Those smaller funds are presented separately back in Schedules 1 and Schedules 2 in the back of this book so that you have a chance to look at the detail for those funds as well. So again, Exhibit C and Exhibit E, those are your modified accrual financial statements. And then if you look at Exhibit D and F, those are the reconciliations on how to get from the modified accrual to the full accrual financial statement. You can step through that and see the process on, how we start with your GAAP report and then the adjustments that are made to get to those full accrual financial statements. Exhibit G, H, and I then are your proprietary fund for your health insurance. So we do show a statement of net position, a statement of changes, and a cash flows for your health insurance. You can see that presented. And then Exhibit J and Exhibit K are your statement of fiduciary net position and your statement of changes in fiduciary net position for your custodial funds. So this is your assessor, your E911, emergency management, your townships, your schools, your corporations where the county is collecting tax and then remitting to those entities or making the expenditures for those entities. So the information for this is aggregated and presented in Exhibit J and Exhibit K. The detail for this is presented in Schedules 3 and 4 in the back of this book. On page 30, we start the notes for the financial statements. And I'm going to skip through all of them unless someone has a specific question. This just goes ahead and gives a lot of accounting vocabulary. It again talks about the cash basis, the modified accrual basis, and the full accrual basis of accounting. It gives the amortization schedule for your debt. It talks about your insurance. There's a note to talk about the actuarial information that's required for the IPERS liability calculation. More actuarial information about your other post-employment benefits, information that again, calculated by your actuary. So those notes just go ahead and provide all of that supporting information for that. The next place I want to stop then is on page 57. And this is the budgetary comparison schedule of receipts and disbursements and changes in balance. So this is your cash basis comparison. So we're looking at the governmental funds, cash basis, receipts and disbursements. And so we have that presented in the actual column. We present your original budget that was adopted back in April of 2023. And then we have your final amended budget. And then we go ahead and we present the actual to final with the variances. And looking at those variances, some are rather significant, especially the one for the capital projects. But during the course of the audit, my staff was able to have discussions with, the appropriate department heads. And, with capital projects, we kind of expect to see a large variance because Mother Nature never cooperates with projects. They never, progress as anticipated. Sometimes there's supply chain issues, like I said, Mother Nature. So even though that is a rather large variance, it was explained. So it didn't raise any red flags with that. The following pages then are some required supplementary information in regards to the budget. And then also we present schedules for the IPERS disclosures. On page 60 and 61, we have a 10-year schedule for the county's proportionate share of the net pension liability. We provide 10 years of documentation as required by the standard. On page 62 and 63, same thing. We show 10 years of county contributions. So you can see what the county contributions and payroll for IPERS had been the last 10 years. We also present some information on other post-employment benefits on 65 and 66. We have a 7-year schedule. This standard was implemented 7 years ago. This will go to a 10-year schedule. So we've got 3 more years to be adding on for this schedule to be complete. Then on page 68, we start the supplementary information, and these are the smaller funds that are aggregated and presented as non-major in the front of the book. This is their chance to shine, so you can go ahead and see the detail for these smaller special revenue funds. Schedule 1 is the balance sheet, Schedule 2 is the statement of changes. And then Schedule 3 and 4, same thing with your custodial funds, chance to show those independently. And then Schedule 5 on page 76 and 77, that is 10 years of history for your revenues by source and your expenditures by function. So you can do any analytical procedures there with that information. So then on page 78, we get back to some more Gardner and Company letterhead. And this is the independent auditor's report on internal control over financial reporting and on compliance. And in addition to opining on whether or not financial statements are fairly presented, we also do internal control test work, and we also do some Code of Iowa compliance test work. Now, the state auditor's office does provide us with a compliance guide every year, and they have us testing for Code of Iowa compliance. And with that, there's some things that they have us test every year, like your budget proceedings, making sure that those publications are happening, your notices of public hearing, that you're having your public hearings as required. There's some things that we test every other year, every 3 years. There's some things we change or we test if there's a change in staff, new auditor, new treasurer. There's some things that get tested every 5 years. There's some things that the state auditor's office throws in just for fun. So we kind of try to mix it up a little bit. Again, this is based on tests and samples. We don't look at every single transaction that might have had an impact on the findings. So if there's something you do 12 times and you mess it up once, and we happen to pick that one time, that's gonna trigger a finding. So that's kind of how that works. We don't look at every single transaction that may have impacted. We also do a lot of internal control work, making sure segregation of duties is happening as much as possible. Again, tests and samples. So that gets us, it leads us into the schedule of findings then, which starts on page 80. The first one is segregation of duties. It's an old friend. The segregation of duties finding is in every single audit report that we issue. It's the nature of local government in Iowa. You don't have enough people on staff to entirely segregate the record keeping and the custody of the cash. You do have controls in place to mitigate those risks. The board is involved with the claims process. You're looking through the claims. The treasurer has a bank reconciliation process in place where you're going ahead and balancing those records every month and tying it back to what's on the county's ledger. But again, not entirely segregated, so it triggers a finding for segregation of duties. The second finding is in regards to preparation of full disclosure financial statements. Because the county does not have a CPA or financial person on staff that prepares the GAAP report, along with the full accrual financial statements and all of these footnote disclosures. Because we assist with that process, we're required to go ahead and put that finding in the report as well as a disclosure. On page 81, we did have a financial reporting finding as well. During the course of the audit, there were material amounts of accounts receivable, deferred inflows of resources, capital asset additions, and construction and process amounts that were not properly recorded on the county's financial statements. So we did propose adjusting journal entries and adjustments for that to properly include those transactions, which were approved by the county. So ultimately, those transactions were properly included in the financial statements. Now, with a part of that, with the accounts receivable, the treasurer's office relies on the departments to let them know, especially in July and August, if those receipts are for services and goods provided in June, or if it's something that's in current year. So it's really important that the department heads have good communication with the treasurer's office during that process. The other piece to that is the opioid settlement. The opioid settlement is going to be going on for the next 16 or 17 years. The county's going to be receiving funding for that. There were a couple of settlements that were completed during the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2024, including the Walmart and the Walgreens and the CVS. And that information wasn't necessarily made readily available to go ahead and start the process for recording that. So we did develop a spreadsheet that includes all of those amounts, and Sheila now has that. So the county has a way to process it, and you know what to expect. The spreadsheets on the state auditor's office website broke it down by settlement. And then they showed what the expected receipts were supposed to be for the next 17 years. So that way, as those receipts are coming in, you'll be able to tick them off and track them. Yeah, so then hopefully that will resolve that part of the finding. And then with the capital assets and the construction process, Secondary Roads had a lot of projects, and I believe we had 2 that were in process that hadn't been included on that GASB 34 Service Bureau report. So and they were both material and dollar amount, so that's what triggered that as well. So then we get to page 82, and here's the statutory reporting. We only have one finding in the statutory reporting, and that's in regards to the budget. And during the year, the disbursements exceeded the amounts budgeted in the non-program function. So, it's just a matter of keeping an eye on that budget and making sure those amendments are happening prior to the disbursements exceeding the amounts budgeted. But that's all that we had for the statutory findings. I do want to talk about the second one, though, the questionable expenditures. During the course of our test work, we did not identify any expenditures that we believe did not have proper public purpose. Now, that doesn't mean there weren't any. It means, again, audit is based on tests and samples. So the transactions that were selected and included in our test work had appropriate public purpose, had appropriate documentation. So it's still important that the auditor's office and the board remains vigilant on, making sure that all expenditures do have a proper public purpose. On page 83, we did have related party transactions during the fiscal year. The Code of Iowa identifies $6,000 as the threshold for a potential conflict of interest. We did have one related party that was over that $6,000 threshold, but the code also provides for, being able to do business with those related parties if the proper procedures are followed. So the proper procedures would include going through a competitive bid process or the related party not participating in the acquisition of the services. And the latter was the case here. So this just becomes a transparency disclosure. There's no finding associated with it. So that's the end of the book. Any questions or concerns? I do have, questions or concerns?
I just have a question to ask you is, now that this is completed, could I have an email, the electronic version?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
and I'll email you, but I just thought I'd say it out loud so I don't forget.
Yeah, it's our firm policy that I can't release the electronic version to you until I have the signed representation letters. So yeah, I can send that to you as soon as I get back to the office after this meeting.
And I had asked Elizabeth earlier, and she goes, oh.
Yep, the draft is available because that's in draft format, but like I said, it's our firm policy and it's an auditing standard too, that we have to have those representation letters, in our hand before we can release that electronic version to you. So, yep, I will do that when I get back. Yeah. Any other questions or concerns?
Just one question, since we had our public hearing this morning. Let me find Elizabeth, where it shows our 30% increase in expenditures. Page 6.
Ooh, that's gonna be a Sheila question. That's not me.
It's not-
That is not, that is,
So revenues of the county government activities in this fiscal year that ended June of '24, we spent 33.62% more than the '23 fiscal year. Some of that is the DOT, but we just use more expenditures, more cost of doing business.
So if I remember correctly, 23, 24, that's when we were finishing up the ARPA, and the ARPA would be part of that, wouldn't it, the expenditures?
yes.
And so that would have been, and
Just an example, that fiscal year that we just got audited was up 33% of county activity for increase of revenues.
And again, that is gonna be partially due to recognizing the DOT, because as they are contributing to the farm to market account and they're paying those vendors, you're claiming that infrastructure, and so that's gonna increase, and then it gets classified as a capital grant and contribution. So that's gonna be the big piece of that. The other piece of it is the American Rescue Plan Act, because you recognize that as you spend it. So as you were making those expenditures, you're recognizing the revenue, so, yeah.
That's all I had. Does anybody else have any questions on the audit ended June 30th of 2024? So just an FYI, we got you one more year, and then we probably go out for an RFP in July or August.
Yeah,
to-
yeah. And, I know we had, a little bit of confusion last time around. Our contract goes until that report is issued. So we're under contract for fiscal year ended 2025. So as soon as that report is issued, that's when the contract is up and.
Yeah, that's why we're gonna go out for an RFP.
Early, yeah.
but you can't answer questions of the current budget, right? You just,
Shouldn't,
okay.
yeah, shouldn't. Yeah, because again, we don't have the contract back for fiscal 2026. And so, most of the time our auditing firms are on the same page. We get the same guidance from the state auditor's office, but that's not necessarily always the case.
Right.
So, yeah. Okay,
Any other questions?
all right, well, thank you for letting me come and visit with you
All right.
today, and let me know if you need anything. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I don't think there's any action on that today.
She's got them all. She's got them all. She should have had a box of them.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, go back up to review and approve resolution 414-2516, adoption of the fiscal year 25-26 county budget. I should have got a copy of that resolution. All it is adoption of the Chickasaw County fiscal year 25-26 proposed budget, whereas the Chickasaw County Board of Supervisors held a public hearing on Monday, April 14th to receive comments regarding the proposed fiscal year 25-26 budget of expenditures and revenues, as was published per public notice in the April 3rd and April 4th, 2025 issue of official county newspapers, the New Hampton Tribune and the Nashville Reporter, and was posted on the county official website, www.chickasawcounty.iowa.gov, and presented at the public hearing on today, April 14th. Therefore, the Chickasaw County Board of Supervisors hereby approves the proposed fiscal year 25-26 budget as was presented and published, budget certification attached and filed on the county auditor's office. Any discussion, Board of Supervisors? Anything you want to decrease? You cannot increase levy rates. You cannot, so levy rates will be, as published, 3.5 for general basic, 1.85 for general supplemental, and 3.5 for
I
RSD.
can't hear you.
Any discussion? If not, is there a motion to approve resolution 4/14/25/16?
I will say I had the public basically say the same thing as what Kathy stated earlier. About everybody else, the elected officials' wages. So, which, that's gonna affect the budget.
It would. It would probably have to recess, and maybe if that is the motion that you make, we gotta redo a lot of things to make a freeze, and we can. I'm not saying we can't. And I guess what elected officials, all of them, or I guess, what's your opinion, Travis?
I don't know. Everybody I've talked to basically has spoke about all
So are you freezing wages countywide then?
Yeah.
I guess that's my question. So if you're gonna freeze it, I mean, I don't mean to be the sourpuss of the room, but a couple of years ago, we came up here and the five of us were the first up, so we got the slash and burn, and then everyone else, once we found extra money at the end of the year, got extra, so. That's just my question. Are we doing a countywide wage freeze? And then if so, what about the unions?
If we do that, then we're gonna have to probably adjust our levy rates also.
Wages don't come out of general, wages come out of general basic, so I don't know why you would.
Well, yeah, that's true. But again, supplemental could get lowered some more.
Just because of FICA.
Well, yeah.
So correct me if I'm wrong, your proposed budget does not raise the levy rate for GS or RSP?
From current year?
From current year.
No.
Okay.
No, it lowers GS by 7 cents? Yes.
Yes, it was
And
96.
RSB by 5 cents.
So your levy rate's actually going down from last year?
Still collecting more money,
So
though.
you can collect, correct.
Due to 2.75 increase in evaluations.
So I'll ask the question I asked 2 months ago when this came up. What does a county wage freeze save the county? How much are we talking about? Because has anyone looked that up yet in 2 months?
My math without the unions would be anywhere from that 40 to 50,000. because there's not that many people that are not in the union.
I'll make a motion for resolution 4/14/25/16 adoption of fiscal year 2025-26 county budget.
Is there a second? I'll second. Motion by Steve, second by Scott to approve resolution 4/14/25/16, the adoption of the fiscal year 25-26 county budget. Any discussion by board members? If not, roll call. Steve?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Travis?
Aye.
Isaac?
Aye.
Jake, aye. Motion is adopted. 5-0. Review and adopt resolution 4/14/25/17, elected officers' wages for fiscal year 25-26. Which, Dave, you can help me out. I think it was also in the resolution we just passed on the back sheet that lists the salaries. There is a standalone resolution. It's not imperative to approve it, right? So in our packet from the Department of Management, on page,
We have to list the salaries.
I'm just wondering why we're doing both this year since we don't have a compensation board.
I just think it's more formal, probably, because that's how you've done in the past, is have a separate resolution for it.
So within the budget where I sign as chair, it lists all 6 elected positions.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah,
So maybe we should have done this one first, but that's okay.
well, that's already done. What I'm getting at, Dave. So that's part of the Department of Management certification of budget.
Oh,
I think it's already done.
okay.
Am I right or wrong? Just because we don't have a compensation.
Well, I guess it's done then, but unless there's momentum to change those numbers.
I think we already did it.
Okay.
This is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
You guys want to approve 17 just for, it's up to you guys. Is there a motion for resolution 4/14/25/17 elected officials' wages for fiscal year?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Sorry.
Motion by Steve, second by Scott. To approve resolution 4/14/25/17 elected officers' wages for fiscal year that starts 25-26 July 1st. Roll call. Steve?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Isaac?
Aye.
Travis?
No.
Jake, aye. Motion carried 4-1.
So that should be the same.
Nothing was needed. All right. We have somebody, I think, walked in, right?
Do we have?
Do we have Review Center, Shiloh? Shiloh, sorry, my
No,
bad.
fine. I'm Shiloh Green from our Review Center. We have a proclamation, I can read it. Whereas sexual assault affects women, children, and men of all racial, cultural, and economic backgrounds. And whereas in addition to the immediate physical and emotional costs, sexual assault may also have associated consequences of post-traumatic stress disorder, substance abuse, depression, homelessness, eating disorders, and suicide. And whereas sexual assault can be devastating not only to the survivor, but also for the family, friends, and community of the survivor. And whereas since no one person, organization, agency, or community can eliminate sexual assault on their own, we must work together to educate our entire population about what can be done to prevent sexual assault, support survivors and their significant others, and support those agencies providing services to survivors. So I'm just here to proclaim the April Sexual Assault Awareness Month.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any discussion, or is there a motion to proclamation of April as Sexual Assault Awareness Month?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Travis, second by Steve, to proclaim April as Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carries.
Do you have to collect this?
No.
No, this one? All right.
Thank you.
Have a good day. David, is Joel?
Shirley, do you want one of those?
Yeah.
They're in the bag, okay.
At 10:05, meet with EMS Director Joel Knutson. Good morning, Joel.
Yeah, just meeting with you guys today to discuss hiring. You and I talked last week a little bit about opening up potentially an EMT shift, either part-time, full-time. Concerns on both sides of it, obviously, part-time. So as a refresher, I sent around a sheet for you guys to look at how we staff our schedule. Just as a refresher, our full-time staff work every third day for 24 hours. 24 hour on, 48 hours off. We had talked about maybe taking the open EMT position and splitting it into 2.6s, so they would work every sixth day instead of every third day. I've worked in a couple systems, and I've done it actually myself, and it kind of seems to work. The concern would be, would there be anybody who would be interested in that? So I guess after reviewing the job descriptions for paramedic and EMT, I think I would encourage the board to allow us to advertise for part-time, full-time, both EMT and paramedic, just in the case that we don't get somebody in the position that we need. They don't have to come back here multiple times to say, okay, now it's been 2 weeks, let's open this up. Now it's been this, 2 weeks, let's open this up. So that's my thought process on that. As when we initially started, we had 3 EMTs, full-time. All of the paramedics were casual. They worked a minimum of 1 shift a month. So since then, Carly has gotten a paramedic. She's bumped up to the paramedic spot on her shift. And then when Brock passed away, we lost the C shift EMT. So we do very well covering on the weekends. We do pretty well covering at night. Our big struggle is during the day, Monday through Friday, with the EMT. Just because, with the exception of Brandon and Carly, we're everybody else's second job, so to speak. So they all work somewhere else and come here for extra hours. So again, that sheet that I sent you was just the June schedule that's open as of yet. It shows a crew 1 position for EMT and paramedic, and then it shows on the backup side. And just as a reminder, the backup side is they're making anywhere from $3 an hour just to help us facilitate transfers out of Mercy, or if we have simultaneous 911 calls, we have 2 calls at the same time, they come in and help staff that second truck.
My discussion with you, and this is where we have that policy about 30 hours plus on average to trigger health insurance. If you would hire 2 part-time EMTs for 1 shift every 6 days, you as the director would manage that, hopefully, and trigger health insurance.
Right. Yeah, so that is, it is a huge concern, because, that could really be super impactful on our budget, right? I'll tell you that, I'll say to the board the same thing I said to you. It's great to have that policy that you're only going to work once every 6 days, but then when the truck is not staffed, what do? We have to staff somebody, right? We have done better about making certain that our providers don't trigger that average of 30 hours per week. And then I'm not an HR person to know exactly how that works. If you work 2 24-hour shifts 1 week, but you don't work again for 3 weeks, how does that average out? So yes, you did it 1 week, but you haven't done it for 3 weeks. How does that work? I don't,
It'll average by the week. So it would be, if it was 224, that'd be 48 divided by 4 weeks.
for the month, right? So that's the look back period, is that what they call it?
It's the whole year.
It's the whole year. So you do it for the full year.
Correct.
So yeah, I can pretty confidently say that none of our casual employees are meeting that. They may do 48 hours in 1 week and then they don't work for the rest of the month, well, then they're certainly not gonna trigger it on that. Nobody consistently, other than myself, I guess I should say, is consistently making that 30 hours a week.
Since health insurance is either $9,000 or $22,000 budget impact. And we talked about this too, and I'll let it be transparent. What if one of those part-time every 6 days quits their full-time job and then you get them more hours, like it did happen already in the past?
Yeah,
And then that would trigger the health insurance.
yeah, it's pretty impactful. I mean, I don't know, we would have to explore it case by case. And if that's not something, the board has appetite for, we can just strictly go to try and hire one full-time person.
Do we have anybody in-house that would fill these day, Monday through Friday shifts? Or you don't have it?
So since Carly made her move from EMT to paramedic in February, we have been doing that. And it's been working fairly well. We've had some gaps in coverage where we've had to, we've had to shuffle things around. It wasn't until the vacancy on C shift became that we've really been struggling, so.
Yeah, I'm fine. I didn't know that any board member have any discussion about, do we still have an open position anyway? I mean, do you still advertise for that on the county website? Or has that been taken down?
That's been taken down.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we would have to put it on the county's website. And ultimately I can bring, 10 names to you guys to hire. It's up to you guys to agree to hire them or not, whether I can justify that. But I think, like I said before, I think we cast the net for any positions and then we bring back what we, what I would recommend to help fill us what we have.
So I'm just trying to figure out what kind of motion do you want then, or need?
If you guys would motion that we open up for hire, part-time, full-time EMT and paramedic positions. And then I would maybe recommend open it till filled. And at some point, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, I bring somebody back to you guys and then we can take them down again, would be my goal.
Any discussion or is there a motion?
How likely is there anybody out there that isn't already doing that, paramedic or EMT?
Doing what?
How likely are you gonna get any candidates?
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm just wondering if all of them are already.
We just had an EMT class that we just finished up and certified 4 so far. Maybe one of them would be interested. I would hope so. We've got, we may be surprised, there may be some internal people who may want to go from casual to full-time. Yeah, I don't know. This is a good time of year, so to speak, because a lot of EMT classes wrap up in the spring. So if they're not elsewhere committed, it possibly would be beneficial. Ideally, if we had somebody from that corner of the county that could still help to fill some of the calls down in Fredericksburg, that would be great. Yeah, we'll just have to see what I guess kind of comes in.
Ultimately, just opening it up doesn't bind you guys to anything. Ultimately, he's gonna come back with a recommendation, you guys will have a chance to decide whether or not you want.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second? I'll second. Motion by Travis, second by Steve, to allow EMS Director Joel Knudsen to advertise for EMT paramedics, full-time, part-time. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye. Aye, anybody opposed? Motion carried. Discuss EMS update. Got anything?
Not really, no. We're, I guess, some things that I was thinking of after you and I chatted the other day, we are completely squared away with Region 2 with all of our grant funding. The last bit of paperwork for the year has been submitted for that. Fairly lengthy process, but it's done, thank goodness. I did reach out to the Iowa Set Off program again, just waiting to see if there's anything that they need from us, and there is not. They're waiting for the MOU that you guys signed to be signed by their department to be sent back to us. And at that point, we can start going into that process. We do have EMS week coming up in May. We're looking at doing some community events for that, some CPR, kind of maybe a touch the truck event or something like that, for EMS week. And then other than that, we're kind of working on our summer fundraising stuff, working with rescue for Heart Days and getting our stuff kind of together for our summer season. Auto launch, I know I've chatted about that a little bit up in the boardroom before. Fully integrated with auto launch. Chickasaw County Dispatch has been great with that. We've had some really, really positive outcomes with that here in the recent couple months. So that's been awesome to see that working like it should. And other than that, just working on, we got all of our people renewed that needed to renew their license by the end of March. So everybody's current again. And then starting back in on training, starting tomorrow night again with more training for the next year. So, yeah.
Just to recap, tomorrow is our certified date of our cash pool. As of today, it's about 819,000, so I don't think it's gonna trigger a payment again for July 5th, so.
I have met with all of the cities, as that's happened a while back, but been in contact with them. We are going to see, going forward, if we can get PCC to run us another report at fiscal year end, so it's a little bit more accurate than calendar year end. I know that was weird with the 2080 and how it was formed, but that is the goal. Like I said, chatted with all the cities members of the 2080, no concerns. They're pleased with where we're at in everything, so hopefully we can keep that going.
Yeah, it looks like your EMS donation's up to about 18,000.
Yeah, and then we'll have the donations of another 9,000 coming in when we finalize everything from the last fundraiser.
Yep.
So
Perfect.
Yeah.
So on your 3 trucks, what are the approximate miles you're
Medic 3, the remount that was purchased last is at 24,000, almost 25,000. The Medic 1 and Medic 2, Medic 2 is at 36,000 and Medic 1 is just over 40,000. So we're trying to put some more miles on Medic 3 to catch it up. That was the remounted truck. Probably at this point in time, we're leaning on that probably to be the first truck to go. So we're trying to use that as a transfer truck, get some miles put on it. And we have done some maintenance on it that made some updates on it that were well needed. Some better shocks had it aligned. It was eating tires pretty badly. So we were able to save a little bit on tires because the ambulances always come with a spare tire. So we were able to actually move one of the spare tires onto a tire that had cupped really badly. We don't need it. We don't need a brand new tire for a spare tire. So anyway, so yeah, just kind of in that 24 to 25,000 to 40,000 mile range.
What's your goal of miles to?
Yeah, so and I was asked by the cities about that too. Obviously, we didn't put it in this fiscal year. I don't suspect that we'll put it in 26, 27. We may see it in the 27, 28 fiscal year. If we get one that gets up around, say that 100,000 mile. We're, depending on manufacturers, we may be a year out. So if we budgeted it in that 27, 28 fiscal year, we would see it in 29. But as of right now, we're sitting very good with them. No real issues with the vehicles at all, so pretty happy about that. We did get notified that we received a community foundation grant to purchase some of our equipment that we had. The next thing that we'll kind of look at granting for is a new ventilator. The ventilators that we got from the state aren't, they were free, they were COVID ventilators. They aren't quite capable of what we are wanting to achieve with them. So we're gonna grant for one new ventilator. And they run anywhere 10 to 12,000. So hopefully we can find a grant to eat up the cost of that. That would be pretty awesome.
Any other questions for Joel? Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, moving on to 10:20 here. Conservation Director Chad Humble. Good morning, Chad.
Good morning.
First thing is, I guess, whatever order you want. Update first or the?
Yeah, sure, that's fine. Just thought it was probably time. It's been a little bit since, with all the budget talk and stuff here, I just kind of stayed out of the way for a couple months. So as far as budget update go, or department update, still got budget on my brain. Hopefully that goes away here rather soon. But so the guys are working in the campgrounds right now, obviously today. That's kind of the biggest thing. We've been watching the weather tonight into tomorrow. I think that's come up enough. But so we're gonna put the water systems together, work on getting that turned on. Now that's a rather lengthy process since they are both considered public water systems before we can provide water, drinking water to the public. I have to have those tested and pass the E. coli and total bacteria samples before we can open that up to the public. So the goal is we'll have water on by this weekend. But again, we'll know a lot more this afternoon. Who knows when you turn those seasonal systems on where you're gonna find water squirting from. So the goal is to do that. We'll get that system shocked today. We'll flush it. We'll get samples taken tomorrow, and then hopefully we'll hear by the end of the week when we get that turned on. I believe Airport already has 3 campers in it, so we've opened them as far as that goes. The power is on. They just know that we're not providing water at this time. The shelter house that we've been working on at the Nature Center is coming along. Obviously, it was not a lot happened over the winter, but I've been in contact with Kevin Haskman throughout the last month or so, a few weeks. He's kind of coordinating that with the Lions Club. So I noticed there was some trailer movement over the weekend. So they're gonna continue to work on that project here as the weather warms up for us. To go along with what Joel had said there, we did pick up a $10,000 community foundation grant. We also received $5,000 New Hampton Hotel Motel grant for our new environmental learning center, hands-on learning center that we want to put in at the Nature Center. It's gonna be about I'm trying to think about a $40,000 project. Our Friends Foundation has pledged $10,000, so that gets us up into that 25 range, and we still have that. And our donation there, we had that private account. I think we got like 22 or 24,000 sitting in that. The Conservation Board has kind of earmarked $10,000 for that project, so we're sitting at about 35,000. So we will start in hopefully on that project after we get through spring field trip season and I have time to sit down with Matt. And then we'll kind of see how things are gonna work out with not having our summer mowing position on staff that we lost through the budget cuts. So kind of one of the things is I think we're gonna try to rob Matt a little bit. One day a week, take him out of the education side of things, knock him down 4 days a week on that, and then put him on a mower with the guys 1 day a week. And we've got some other things going as we'll get into here further down the line. So the guys the last few weeks, they've been working on a pretty extensive invasive species removal out at the Nature Center. Anybody that's driven by there, we've that forestry head that we picked up that grant for earlier last fall. We've been doing a lot of grinding and bittersweet bug foam removal there at the Nature Center, trying to clean that timber up. They've been getting stuff put together, the campgrounds, chlorines, envelopes, going through all those little nuts and bolts and bits and pieces to make sure that when we do finally turn the water on, that we're ready to go. We get, just depends on the day. Some days we get 3 and 4 phone calls, whether wanting to know if we've got the water on or not. So, and again, We've got a couple of construction workers in there that I couldn't say no to. Again, I'm no different than anybody else, right? I mean, if we can turn on some of the financial income, I have a hard time saying no. So that's kind of why we're pushing the envelope there a little bit with those guys to get them out there and provide that service. A lot of picking up sticks, finishing grinding stumps. You know, we have a lot of ash trees that we had to remove the last few years, so we're getting those all cleaned up and graded. We had a drainage issue at Howard's Woods from the top part of the park down the boat ramp. They got that regraded and seeded. They got burn equipment ready to go. They burned, I think, 3 areas so far this season. Helped with our spring hunting. And then we did get over the winter. I know that was something we had discussed kind of early last winter. Bypass basin, so we got, I don't remember how many loads of rock, but we got a driveway put in and a parking area up to the grain bin gazebo. The guys have gates put in out there. I don't know how successful the gates will be to keep people from driving around them into the grass, but it'll keep the honest people out. So the goal is to try and get that opened up and at least get people further back up on top of the hill. And then we'll continue to work with that carbon pipeline. Again, I don't want to get too far out in front of that just because that money is also ear tagged to finish the grading and the native seeding and some of that stuff. So we're working on that, we're gaining, but get kind of that process under wraps. Matt just finished up a 2-week NASP program, National Archery in the Schools program. 2 weeks he spent down in Sumner Fred Middle School. So that's always an exciting program, and one of the kids are always happy to see us come in. Obviously, he facilitated the Hunter Ed class that we helped him out with. He's the nursing homes programs he's continuing to do on a monthly basis. A New Hampshire first grade program he finished up last week. Radio interviews, and then he's in the process of prepping, cleaning the nature center, getting that prepped for spring field trip season. I believe he was supposed to be kayaking today. With the middle school as they get into kind of their, I don't know, Edmester, mate, or whatever. So he'll spend about 2 weeks in the New Hampton schools doing different things from kayaking to canoeing to outdoor cooking and camping and so on and so forth. So that's kind of a gamut of where we're at. We're obviously making the big shift, obviously from winter into spring. So a lot of calls with camping and stuff. So hopefully that continues to go well so we can have more money in our ending fund balance as far as what we budgeted for camping revenue. So that is the big push right now. Landfill wise, so April 9th, last Wednesday was that? Anyways, I met with Doug from HLW at the landfill. He did his biannual inspection, so we walked around, took a look at everything, looked at the old seats. Oh, one other thing that the guys did finish up as well, I missed. There were a few well heads that when the well contractors were there, when they drilled those, they couldn't get the well heads were seated in concrete, obviously froze in. So Justin and Caleb got the remainder of those popped out, got those graded and seated. So HLW will work on, they've got that contract should be sent into the DNR so that they know that all the wells have been capped. They did also get the new test wells, those five piezometer wells dug. When Doug was up here last week as well, then he kind of went through what we needed to do. We've got that new tape that you guys had okayed there for me to purchase to monitor the water levels in the leachate system. So I'm working with Todd and Doug right now. I've got a couple different stories from each one of them on how frequently we need to monitor that system. So Matt, Justin, Caleb, and myself were all there. It's pretty straightforward, but had Doug kind of walk us through everything. So I don't know. Basically what we'll do now then as far as that landfill goes is we will sample that. We will test those water wells probably for at least a year. And this is just a current map I should give you guys where the 5 wells are if you're ever out there. We will test those water levels for probably the balance of a full year to kind of get an idea of where they're at height-wise, what they have for moisture in them. And then as we shut that leachate system down, as we shut that leachate system down, then over the next few years, we will continue to monitor those water levels in the trash cells. And then we'll get an idea, the DNR hopefully will, on what we're doing, what's going on underneath there. So if they'll allow us to shut that down. So you can see where those 5 wells are, just kind of out on the end of the old system. And that's the old landfill that's just like a half-mile south of the nature center. If you haven't been out there, whatever, it's closed in like, I think the covenant we went into in like 98, and they stopped taking trash in like 93 or 2 or something like that. So just kind of one of those long processes. So we're gaining. I think we're just, once we figure out how often we need to monitor that stuff, and then what we need to take off of it for leachate, we'll just kind of continue to adjust and move forward on that. And we're kind of into the data collection process now. So hopefully everything continues to go well. But the seeds that we had to fix, I think those were last year when we had that last inspection, everything looked good. So Doug was extremely excited with how the vegetation, everything looked like on the cap there. So things seem to be going along well with that. Next thing there, timber sales. So I had handed Dave a copy and I did not get a chance to forward this. So I've been working with Mason Hubrig. He's the DNR forester out of Charles City. We've got that timber management plan put together for those 2 5-acre patches out at the nature center. We would like to release a timber sale contract, and this is all kind of run through the DNR forestry department, but I will give you a copy of what we are proposing to send out. I did have the conservation board go through this last Monday night at our meeting, and they approved it. So, and David has a copy of that. He will go ahead and go through that and make sure, but it's just kind of all chalk. This is a contract that the DNR forestry department uses on a regular basis, so I don't have any concerns about that. So where we're at in the process is we planted 4,000 trees, 400,000, that would be phenomenal. 4,000 trees last week in these 2 5-acre parcels that we've got sectioned out. So we're gonna let those trees grow for a season. We'll go through this timber sale. They'll have then 18 months to harvest the merchantable timber that's been marked by the forester in those areas. After they've finished harvesting, we'll come through then and we will clear cut, or we'll drop the rest of the trees that were left in that area. Kind of let that stuff all lay down on top of the seedlings that we just put in, and then try and promote that regrowth of those hardwoods, mainly pretty much oak, swamp white oak and bur oak heavy, with a few other varieties mixed in. But the goal there is to try and get a little bit more promotion with our timber stands in the county. So that being said, any questions on that before I go into the next part? Pretty much.
Can you replace the logging routes with any trees?
So the one there on the east side is kind of down that alleyway that we have there that turns off and goes back to the river for people to view the river. The other one on the west side is currently part of our trail system that we have out there. So that staging area is in an area that we've done as like a 2-acre clear cut there, that we had an old pine stand that basically they had all died off, that we wanted to regenerate in there. So we haven't planted that. The goal was to plant that this spring, but then as we got into discussions with Mason, we moved forward, we put that on the burner for next year potentially, depending on how the next process comes up. So the Department of Natural Resources has secured a large grant from the federal government that's specifically for county conservation programs and timber management. It's a grant process that's put together where county conservation programs can apply for a $100,000 grant application. So it's the Iowa Forestry Resiliency Partnership Program. So again, along the line, working with Mason, we sat down and we came up with some numbers on some stuff. That's a pretty big bite for a 4-person staff to try and go after, but we felt like there's plenty of opportunity in Chickasaw County with the properties that we manage. And again, to have the opportunity to manage some of those properties that we don't get an opportunity to. So we're gonna go after, it's an 80-20 match. So where are we gonna come up with our 20,000? Well, my first part is they do have a secondary wildlife habitat grant that is put together to help fill that $20,000 gap. The other one there is depending on what we have for that tree harvest, that timber sale. we would use that as our seed money for that 20% match. So hopefully this thing kind of hit us at the right time as we were moving forward with some other projects. So I'm pretty excited about that. I know it's not something that a lot of people look at closely, right? You drive down the road and you see trees and you think everything's fine. The health of our forests and timber stands in Iowa are not in good shape. So, which is why the DNR went after this large grant source for our county conservation programs. So that's going to be something we're going to be putting together and going after basically $80,000 to help us facilitate some different things. One of them would be, I think we've got maybe like 5-acre timber planting out at Bypass Basin. They're kind of on the south end, would kind of separate us from the farm fields and town, as you come into that property. So there'll be some new timber going out. I think we had about 12 acres of new tree plantings and timber that we wanted to put forward. Obviously, we're going to use that for some of our post-harvest control and the clear cutting and the management of the 10 acres that we just have started in on our tree plantings. And then there'll be some invasive species removal there at the nature center as well to kind of continue with what we've got going on. So it won't take long for us to come up with $100,000 worth of projects in the county, but I just wanted to give you an idea of what was going on there, how I'm hoping to facilitate our 20% or 20,000 basically as we get into budget talks or finish budget season. That's always a concern there. Any questions or comments on any of that part of it?
Just a question, I've never done it, so how do you save the little trees that you just planted from being destroyed?
So again, I haven't either, so I'm really excited about this, right? So, but they're small enough, right? So they'll be whips or seedlings. So a lot of what we planted was about this tall. So, and you're planting right at, a mature timber is probably only gonna have 50 large viable trees. So we're putting them in there at 400 an acre is what we average, plus we're hoping to have some natural regen with some of the oaks and some of that hardwoods that are already there. So with the combination of things, and then we'll lay the rest of those tops down over those seedlings, actually kind of helps keep the deer and some of that stuff off of them. So
You don't tube any of them?
we won't tube them in this until maybe later on down the road when we get to that point of, maybe 4 or 5 years from now, we'll go in and potentially selectively pick the ones that we want to really promote. So I think around the nature center, as we promote some of that growth and get those invasives out of there, we'll tube those. We planted about 30 of those seedlings in that couple acres there to try and keep some of the deer and rabbit off.
Don't worry about mice instead of deer.
Right. So it's always something, right? It's a never-ending battle. So those are a couple great projects that I'm really excited about, especially with the smaller staff and smaller county to try and keep getting after. So things are going well there. Again, like I said, we just picked up another 15,000 in grant money. We're going after another 100,000 or 80,000. So we'll just keep knocking on doors and seeing what we can do.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
The last thing here kind of was not, kind of fell into my lap, right? So the last thing we've got on there is volunteer, and I think I did have this.
I have the handbook up on the screen.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
So you guys can take a look at that. So I had actually one of our seasonal campers got a hold of me and said, hey, would you be interested in swapping out some seasonal camping for mowing at Airport Lake? And I'm like, with what we're going through, I'm like, that sounds great, but it never happened. So we started the process. It's been a rather lengthy process. So I started out with Sheila's office that kind of helped. We kind of got together. We kind of got to focus on how we wanted to handle this. We got a hold of David. David thought that seemed great. Wanted us to reach out, obviously, to Ann and Judy. So got a hold of Judy. She's the one that sent me this volunteer handbook that we put together. This is one that she's using in another county in the Heartland risk pool of the risk pool. So we converted that all over to Chickasaw County. Sent that back to David. He thought it all looked good again, sent that down to since it's fairly HR heavy, wanted to have Ann check that out. So Ann took a look at that. Also talking with David, then there's the second part there towards the tail end. There's an actual more of a park volunteer specific for this position, kind of like we have with our camp hosts. that kind of outlines expectations, who's getting what, for how or when. And then obviously, as we do in all of our stuff there, that last clause in the contract is either party gives them a way out if this doesn't work. So, again, back to David, everything looked good, sent that back down to Ann on that part. So I've had both of these documents approved by 2 lawyers. The risk health pool, I think we're a go. The Conservation Board adopted and approved these last Monday night at their board meeting. Wanted to talk with you guys and see what your concerns or thoughts are, where we're at. I mean, I think it's a win-win for both parties. I know the liability thing comes up a lot, but there's liability in anything, right? I understand a trained individual or somebody that does it at a higher level, but if there's a rock sitting there and somebody doesn't see it and they hit it and they put it into a side of a camper, it doesn't matter who's on the mower, right? We have that risk or that liability at any time. So that doesn't bother me, I guess, probably as much as maybe the auditor's office or some of the insurance. But I mean, I think there's a lot of potential there. Again, just trying to look outside the box and see where we're at. But between that, some of the things that we're doing with Matt, trying to shift him over, I'm hoping I can cover it at this point in time on, 2 of the 5 days of that we lost on that 6-month position that we lost due to budget cuts. So again, just trying to look outside the box and get people more cross-trained and do some other things.
So just financial question, the seasonal spot is $1,800?
Correct.
And you got in here that he's gonna work a potential 126 hours?
So yes, correct. So the deposit has already been paid. So we're only out 13. So it's $10 an hour.
Okay.
Basically is what our rough agreement. We're not putting an hourly thing on it. We're kind of looking at the hours and we're not putting a dollar amount per hour is basically how we're looking at it. So when we get, but yes, it's on there, but it's not on there, right? I mean, that makes sense. So I don't know, obviously my guys are probably gonna mow at a little bit faster rate, which I also get that. That's an extremely rough property, as you can imagine. But those were just some numbers, right? I mean, if we had 22 weeks of mowing, at 7 hours would be 154 hours for the season. If that property would take 6 hours of mowing, it'd be 132 hours, which we kind of right in our wheelhouse. I don't think he's gonna be able to get it done quite that quick. But, so it's good. Basically though, it's still gonna cover 80% of our mowing season, which is the bulk of it, right? I mean, once we get through that, hump. So, we do have that 3rd mower. We don't quite know, we've probably set that out there and tarp it some way, but we have a mower that we're able to facilitate that with. We use that as our backup. So there might be weeks where we have to go, bring it back to the nature center and use that on the regular routes. But, I beat this thing up.
No, I think it's a good opportunity for the volunteer and the county and the county conservation.
Sorry, I'll jump in. I'm in the middle of the meeting upstairs, but I signed off on this. Chad and I talked, Ann and I talked, everyone from our departments are on board with, and if you guys want to approve that.
No, we're good.
I totally said that. I already got this approved by 2 lawyers.
Yeah, exactly. So, sorry, we're hearing upstairs, but I thought I'd come down and let you know.
Thank you, Dan. So, and again, any questions? And
my only question, if it dries up and there's not mowing.
Yeah, right. I can definitely see that concern at the end of the season. It's like, oh, hey,
If the volunteer contract is so specific just to mow and trim.
Well, and I don't think we have it just specific to mow.
Okay.
I've kind of opened that up. I tried keeping it as general as I could. So like if we have somebody elsewhere that wants to do potentially something, I know we do have volunteers on the weekends. We'll come and open the nature center and some of that stuff. So like this major contract here, the volunteer handbook, if you get to the back, that kind of covers all those little things. It was just this one here, since there were a little bit of, I don't call it a volunteer thing, but there is a little bit of financial exchange back and forth.
That's my.
So, so I've got it in there for some other things there, as per conservation director, if agreed upon by both parties. So
Yeah, I don't see, that'd be my only concern is if the mowing, the job duties are dried up.
And we only end up doing half of what we were hoping to get done, yeah.
Just because there is a forfeit of camping fees.
Right, so.
Because that individual will start use all the camping.
Yeah, right, absolutely, you're gonna get all the benefits on that side of it, so, you're gonna lose out on that part of it, but, I mean, that could definitely be a possibility, again, we would probably just have him help out, if we could, elsewhere in the park or whatever, but, I definitely can see that outcome, but I don't know that will be, even a lot of times when it's not growing a ton, we still try and mow it once a week just because you know how that goes, right? It doesn't take long and you got weeds popping up and it just looks uneven. And with my background and coming from the maintenance side of things, I really like to keep things looking crisp out there and provide that good service.
Another concern of mine would be, since I camp out there sometimes, this individual will not be the camp host.
No, we're still going to have, so again, it's a different contract in the camp host. We did not want them necessarily facilitating or interacting with the public. That is still will be Tina and Shelley's jobs at the two respective campgrounds as kind of our figurehead or our point of contact. So again, we won't make it super public, right? I mean, that's not the goal. It's just to kind of help both parties out here and help us out and look outside the box on ways to expand, and help pick things up with budget cuts.
No, I think it's a great, any other discussion? I think all the documents are well prepared that will hold us unaccountable.
Yeah.
A liability issue.
So.
Is there a motion to approve the volunteer handbook and the volunteer position agreement with county conservation?
So. Second.
Motion by Scott, second by Travis. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Chad.
Anything else, or I'll let you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Just follow up, I'm gonna talk about this later too, but is the volunteer person gonna have a personal file in your office or?
Wherever. I don't think I bring it up for the camp folks. I think I just keep it out there. Yeah, just that signed
I've
contract.
never seen one.
Yeah, I keep it out there, so if you need one, go ahead, let me know.
Thank you. On to, Engineer Roman Munson. Good morning, Roman.
Okay.
First thing is review and approve Iowa Department of Transportation federal aid agreement for the County Highway Bridge Project BLS CO 19, parentheses 121, 8J19.
So this is typical with all of our federal aid projects, again, 100% federal aid through our HBT dollars, which is our highway bridge program. This is bridge FHWA number 111300. It is on 190th Street east of Odessa, currently posted at 141919. So Ben has been thrown into design on this one with mine and Liza's assistance. He's doing a great job. We're moving forward in project development, getting the design buttoned up. This would be one that would be let probably in January of 26, constructed around this time next year. So we just need approvals for, auditor and chair signature, and then DOT would put their signatures on.
Is there a motion to approve said project?
Move to approve with board chair auditor signature. Second.
Motion by Scott, second by Steve to approve the Iowa Department of Transportation federal aid agreement for a county highway bridge project as mentioned. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carried. Review and approve fiscal year 26 Iowa DOT secondary road budget for Chickasaw County.
So this budget mimics the county budget, aside from some differences, which is typical between the county and state budget. Revenue, that difference would be the $110,000 in road clearing. And then expenses differ due to construction projects, whether that be carrying same projects from one fiscal year to another, or we do have alternative bid options in one, that ended up when we did the county budget. Now it's gonna be precast, which that letting, of course, is next Monday. So those are the differences.
This one's due by tomorrow? April 5th.
Which we already received DOT approval. They changed the process for the fire program and the budget after last year's
They do it first.
debacle by the state, so we already have DOT approval now, it's just me clicking the box and submitting, so.
Is there a motion to approve the fiscal year 26 Iowa DOT secondary road budget for Chickasaw County?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Travis, seconded by Steve, to authorize chair on the secondary road budget with the Iowa Department of Transportation. If hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carried. Review and approve the Iowa DOT County 5-year program for Chickasaw County.
So, as I've stated in previous years, next year is the accomplishment year, so those are pretty much set in stone. Of course, that starts on July 1st. We've got several bridges coming up for next year, but that also carries into lettings that fall in that fiscal year as well. So some would be constructed this summer, some would be let in January, February, and constructed in sometime after that. I don't know if you guys want me to go through this individual project based. I gave you guys all maps, drafts of the program that are the same as what was approved. So would you prefer?
I don't need, I've seen them. Anybody else? No. Isaac, you want to see something?
If there's any questions in it, I guess I'll stress this for the public. Bridge 2530, which is on 150th Street west of the 18, is a perfect example of some problems that I see coming to the county, not just our county, statewide. You have a bridge that right now is about 180 foot long, just roughly. Preliminary hydraulics on it, it's gonna probably require a 226, 243 foot bridge. Currently there's 30 vehicles a day on that structure. So if you anticipate that bridge is gonna last 70 years, which is a fair guess, at 30 vehicles per day, with my estimated cost to replace that bridge, every vehicle that crosses it in its lifetime would cost $1.81. So my personal recommendation is to close the bridge because we have 270 roughly bridges that will at some point need work. We need to prioritize where our money goes. We are not receiving enough money to keep our current system up. If anyone ever wants to talk to me about that, I sure will have a conversation with you in regards to it. But to me, $1.81 per vehicle through that bridge's lifetime is not worth it. But I know it's an inconvenience to the people that live around that bridge, which I fully understand. But in the real world, where do we want to prioritize our monies? Do we want to keep our system up, or do we want to have posted bridges all over? Or do we want to close some that are yet less utilized, don't have an extensive detour around them? Same goes with some of our roads. If we don't have a resident on them, maybe we need to start lowering designations, or vacating if we are able. So, since we're on the subject of money, so I just want the public to know that I'm more than willing to have a conversation one-on-one with anybody on it, so. But, yeah.
How many people travel that old steel bridge?
Our most current, so the DOT is doing away with the printed traffic maps. They're still gonna have, so they do a traffic count every 4 years, but it alternates. So this coming year, they're gonna do our major collector roads, our farm and market roads. 4 years after that, they will do every road in the county. So right now, that road's traffic count is based off 2021. So this 2025 will have a new traffic count. I would assume it's not gonna change. Well, that one especially, because they're not doing that road. I could request them to do that, but they're gonna be doing it in 4 years too.
Is it down to 3 ton?
That bridge, yeah, can't go anywhere. 3 tons is like where we draw the line. And honestly, we had Calvin Burns did a rating on it, because we have to use a keeper truck on that, because it's all the bolted connections, it's fracture critical, which now is non-redundant steel tension member to put a little less fear into the words, I guess, it's fracture critical. I was surprised they didn't recommend closing it yet, but it's coming. That bridge is on a 12-month inspection cycle, so.
Yeah, I hold my breath every time I cross it.
It's rated, if you're 3 tons or less, you have nothing to fear. If you're going overloaded, then you should not be doing that.
My only concern, I've said this before in a public meeting, is that ring neck haven. A lot of people use those ponds. Yes, there's other ways to get to it, except for that unapproved road that goes to the west there at Green Lane.
Yeah, well, Franklin comes down south of there, connects to B18. There's a T intersection about 50 feet from the bridge that if you're traveling south, you could go, yes, if you wanted to travel north, with the unapproved road, but.
I just told you, I got a complaint one time by a local farmer, but it's down to 3 ton, they can't drive a tractor on it anymore. But,
It's 3/4 ton pickups, one more now.
exactly. So.
And I get it's an inconvenience, people are used to 1 mile grids, but the money's not there. I told you guys I submitted to Intercog that we're probably gonna be estimating about $100 million in needs in the next 25 years. And we holding back anything, not including TIF, which I hope we do, but that's got a limited pot of money in there as well. But if we're only gonna get $50 million in farm to market money and our highway bridge program, which are both through the DOT, something's gotta change. Prices aren't going down. They've leveled off as far as year-to-year increases, but. So.
No. Is there a motion to approve the Iowa DOT County 5-year program as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Motion by Steve, second by Travis to approve the 5-year program for the Iowa DOT. These are subject to change, right?
Yeah. A lot of the projects in there, actually, we did 2 federal grants for about $2 million that we're hoping to get awarded. That'd be 2 bridges. A lot of it relies on TIF. If we move forward with some of these projects being partially funded or fully funded by TIF, some of it depends on if I can get some of the cities to, so if a city owns even a square foot of a bridge and the county owns the rest, if their city limits encompass a square foot, they are eligible, that bridge now is eligible for city bridge funding if it meets certain condition requirements. So we can get up to 80% of that, some of those structures funded with the city bridge funding. I've got to coordinate with the city of New Hampton, the city of North Washington, the city of Bassett to potentially annex a portion of the bridge, and they can unannex after the bridge is built. It's not a thing that is uncommon amongst all the counties in Iowa, but if we can get, 80% of a $1 million job paid for with city bridge funding, then we can just use that additional money for another bridge. So there's a lot of moving parts to this document, that's why I update it every year.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion, otherwise we'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carried. Discuss request for deer crossing sign by Mark. I destroy names all the time.
Mark and Valerie?
Mark and Valerie Nago?
Natvig.
On V56 north of 120th Street.
So they called in, and I completely understand what they're getting at here. They've had some deer get hit by their residents. I looked up on our crash analysis tool. There was three reported incidents in the area, I guess where I drew my line for their area in the last 10 years. And I get what they're concerned about. They don't want anybody to get hurt. And I'm guessing they don't enjoy deer carcasses or vehicle parts in their ditch, but I think the main thing is they don't want people to get hurt. So looking at it though, so B22 from Highway 63 to B56, vehicle blacktop, that has had 16 in the same time period as far as animal related. There's been 5 on B56 between 120th and 140th, which would be the 2 miles south of where their area of concern is. So, and what I told them, you know, I'm all for safety, but personally, when I'm driving, I'm expecting a deer to pop out at any moment in any part of Iowa that I'm in. I know the deer don't read the signs, and I feel like people don't all the time either. If that sign got put up and I was guaranteed that someone would look at it and be cautious and they would not hit a deer and maybe roll their car and get killed, I'd put it up, but I don't know that. And where do we draw the line? You know, do we put additional ones on B22? Do we put more on B56? And I guess this is the guidance that I'm looking for, the decision for you guys. If we were to put it in there, where are we or where aren't we going to put it in? I know we've gone through this before with stop signs. And to me, if we've turned down stop signs at locations, I find it really hard to believe that we would approve deer crossing signs that are not, I guess, not more required as far as traffic control.
Yeah, you're right, deer are all over.
Yeah.
Every type of animal that I know in Northeast, around everywhere, turkey, everything.
I don't know where you'd stop.
I don't know.
Just a mile of safety tree that my farm's on, there's 5 deer carcasses in there right now.
And I'm not arguing with them. I can even see the deer trail from the aerial. I mean, you go to Beacon, you can see where they're saying that they're crossing. I'm not gonna argue with that, and I think it may or may not be helpful, but just with the traveling public, thank God for hands-free. People are still gonna be on their cell phones. No one's reading signs barely anyways. I wish they would, but I'm comfortable with any decision you guys make. It's just, my concern is where do we stop? Where do we start?
Yeah, be consistent.
I did tell them that, you know, that I'd bring it to the board. I told them I anticipated a decision would be probably not, because money and where do you go, where don't you put it? I will extend the offer that if they are willing to put them up themselves to pay for it. We've done that before with certain signs that are non-regulatory. If the resident that's requesting it is willing to pay the bill, sure. So I guess I'm looking for what the board's decision is, because this isn't the first time this has been asked. I think there is some guidance that the DNR can do, like a migratory deer pattern, or, you know, not migratory, but, you know, study their movements and give their certification that it is an active path.
Anybody want to do anything? Is there a motion?
If they want to do something, they can pay for it.
I don't hear nothing, Roman, so thank you. Department update?
Pretty typical. Blades have been out all week last week, as well as spot rack various locations. The staff did have a hearing test on 4.8 and flagger training on 4.9. Tons of spot rack, tons of blading. I'd say I talked with Tyler on it. He figures this is worse than the previous 2 years. The condition, thank God it's not 2019, but it's still not great. We did have West Union Trenching placing a lot of spot rock on the roads that they placed the fiber utility in. That will continue into this week. They've been good about honoring that. Retrieving shoulders on hard surface. We did construct a retriever on a tractor mounted retriever that they've been working on hard surface in the southeast quarter. The sign crew has been helping out with that, which it's great that our crews are working out together so our blade men can stay blading and spot racking. These guys are shuffling things around to make this work. We did get the dynamic GPS and camera demo installs completed, so we have those in 2 tandems, 1 motor grader, 2 trucks. We're trying to work through the software aspect of it to test it out. So we'll move forward with that, see how it works, and decide if we do want to move on that in the next fiscal year. We do have all equipment, winter equipment removed aside from 1 truck. That would be our belly blade dump truck, which we can't use in the quarries anyways, because the belly blade snags on the scales, barriers. So we have 1 truck remaining dressed if something were to happen. Bridge 0270 on 300th east of B56, bridge demolition is completed. Substructure was staked out last week. We'll probably see some pile get driven for the abutments or pier this week. Probably some concrete going too. Bridge 2400 on the Caldwell Blacktop, still planning on an April 28th start date, so that, just for the public to know, that's on a hard surface. There's 125 working days on that bridge. It's a 213-foot structure, a lot of work. I hope that it'll not need 125 working days, and doesn't include weekends, so that's basically 6 months that could be closed for, so plan ahead. Kenwood Avenue project, we did complete placing modified subbase south of Kroll's main driveway, so they're leaving that area in until they get it paved, and then they'll work on that, meet the middle. Currently planning on starting to pave this Wednesday. We might have some handwork pop up prior to that, so progress being made. It wasn't the best time for us to open it up. There was kind of a mess with the rains and not very good drying weather, but I think last week helped shape it up quite a bit. A lot of design and development work. Again, I was off last week, so I tried to keep up at home as good as I could, but we do have 3 lettings coming up next Monday. 2 would be they're tied for the supply and delivery of structural steel for 2 bridges that our crews will be building. And then also the supply and delivery of a precast box that our crew will be installing. So we had to have them let because it exceeds the bid threshold for us to do it ourselves, but our guys will still be doing all the work. We just had bidders submit for the material. So that will be all next Monday. Plans will be, we can designate it, those will be turned into our office. So I'll bring them in. Sheila, you won't have to worry about receiving them this week or next Monday. Of course, the state budget and CFYP was approved by DOT. I guess I don't know if you guys, I don't know how much I want to say on this one, but we did have a certain operator cause roughly $30,000 of damage in a couple days on our secondary gravel roads. Looking at options of assessing those damages to the hauler. I know that we're an agricultural community, but there was three stretches of roadway that we actually had to close for the safety of the public. Our guys had to go and help people get out. I know one person had a medical appointment that I think was needed, and Dan down there, he's been doing a great job. Our crews did a great job, everybody that helped. I mean, it was all hands on deck to try to get these roads repaired. And even doing that, it still takes time. Anybody who lives on a gravel road knows what a frost boil is. So I will give our crews, they did an amazing job, but we're looking into seeing the potential options for assessing this damage. Not sure what avenue we have for it, but I'll work with David on that for a little bit. And maybe we go into a closed session.
Romans did talk to me about it yesterday or last week. Very careful of what we say today. I would say submit a claim. I know the county attorney probably gave you that advice too, and see what happens. And then if nothing happens, then maybe litigation.
Yeah, I get it, but it's just, it was more so the safety of the public got compromised, so.
Correct.
We got everything open back.
Everything is opened up now, so I would say on any of our gravel roads right now, don't go driving 55 miles an hour. Be cautious, because a spot can come up pretty quick that is either soft or, anybody hauling heavy equipment can quickly make a road change from the last time you're on it, so.
And then if it rains this week, it's gonna make it a muddy mess because it's gonna be softer yet.
Yeah, but hopefully a nice warm rain helps bring out that remaining frost if there is anything underneath the road beds out.
There's still frost.
Yeah, you guys can visit with Roman, but I think he's talking to the attorney and see what he can do as the engineer to try to recoup some of this $29,000. Anything else for Roman? Contract rock, they gonna start anytime soon or?
So I reached out to Bruning last week in regards to, we didn't receive the contracts yet. And they indicated that they were mailed out that day. I believe that was on Thursday. So we should get them this week and then we can start coordinating. I know Tyler wanted to get things going, but also we shouldn't be doing too much work before the contracts are fully executed. So hopefully we'll see them in the mail today. Maybe we even have them already. Right away, I'll get them signed. And we'll move as quick as we can. I know our own crews will be hauling 15,000 tons, so we'll do that as we see fit. We have the manpower and equipment available, so.
All right, any questions for the engineer? Thank you. Treasurer Matt Eisbrand, good morning, Matt.
Good morning.
Discuss semi-annual report.
Yeah, so I brought the reports up today for the end of the quarter. So everything's pretty much in line in comparison to where it was last year as far as general basic, general supplemental, total cash. I looked this morning, I think we had about 600,000 in unpaid taxes, so some of that's some older stuff that's hanging out there, but, so I think that's right about where we were last year too for unpaid taxes at this point, so. We'll have letters going out soon, so that usually gets the majority of them collected, just people who forgot.
600,000 on that, just clarify, that's countywide, that's school tax, that's all
Yes.
taxes, that's not county lost revenue.
Right,
It's all
Yeah.
tax bodies lost.
that's just, yeah, strictly all property tax total.
Correct.
So yeah, like I said, general basic, general supplemental, it's right about where it was last year, a little more actually, so.
How's the interest helping?
It helps, I mean, obviously, these months when we have more money in the accounts, it helps out a lot more. I would say on average, yeah, it's probably around 40,000 a month, like, in interest, so. Just depending on where our balances are, so our balances were good last month, and by the end of the summer, they're usually much lower before we get another shot at property taxes in the fall, so.
If there's no questions, is there a motion to approve the Iowa County Treasurer semi-annual report ending March 31st, 2025?
So moved.
Sorry.
Motion by Scott, second by Travis to approve the semi-annual report ending March 31st, 2025. This one has to be in the paper, right, Matt?
This one doesn't.
This one does not, so it's
No,
every 6 months.
just, yeah, just 6 months.
Thanks for clarifying. Not hearing any, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, anybody opposed, motion carried.
Thank you.
We'll get one stamped and then everyone over in the auditor's office if you need a copy.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Heritage Center update. Yeah, me and Travis worked on this last week, kind of threw my hands up, and if somebody else wants to help or guide a different way. When I went to Gov Deals, it wanted a lot of personal stuff for the account holder. Like cell phone, routing numbers, bank information. I didn't want to do that on behalf of this board. I asked the sheriff what he used. He used Purple Wave Auction Company. He tried Gulf Deals too, and he goes, no, I'm out. He didn't want to put his name out there on social media and the website, because you could have people calling from all different countries and no. So I guess I brought it back to your guys' attention. I did have Sheila do a copy and color of the 5 pieces of equipment. I think it was all sent to you guys. I think we just do it back the normal way to put on the county website.
Yeah, for this little bit of stuff as it is, I think it's the simplest way to go. You're not gonna generate much income.
No, this stuff has all been, most likely been depreciated out, so a lot of stainless steel stuff that is well photographed. Just need to know some ideas. Last time when we did this, we had people come at a certain time for Dave Gorman to show. So that is a question mark. And then when do you want bids due back by? Sealed to the auditor's office Friday, the May 2nd or May 9th. And then what day do you want people to see this equipment in person. Last time I think it was Thursday, so that could be like the 24th. And they're due back by the 2nd, whatever you gotta do,
24th of May.
April. They're all in the north wing of the Heritage Center, so they'll be easy to get to. They're all in the
Saturday works better for,
I think it depends on the weather. He's gonna start mowing here shortly. Doesn't really matter. I think he's open 23rd, 24th, Wednesday, Thursday, just one day. I don't think it'll give you 2 days. And then advertise it in the county website and on the bulletin boards. Is there a motion with all that information and due back, I would say,
May 2nd.
May 2nd, gives everybody 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
All right, so what day would you like to see? Wednesday or Thursday for viewing?
Thursday.
Thursday,
So that's in May,
April
April
24th.
24th, okay.
and then they're due back on May 2nd. Is there a second to that motion?
A second.
Motion by Steve, second by Isaac to go out for sealed bids for old kitchen equipment at the Heritage Center. Open viewing will be Thursday, April 24th, and due back by 4 o'clock in the auditor's office on May 2nd.
And they're just going on the county website and now Windows and old ones.
Any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carried. Don't leave, we gotta sign all these resolutions, board. Otherwise, is there any discussed future agenda items? So since the budget process has almost been done, me and Sheila will work with Travis Squires in the future to talk about the wind turbine TIF, better name, urban renewal plan, which includes the turbines and homeland. I did get a phone call from Beth Eiler a couple of weeks ago, months ago. At some point, she will present a business plan. I will not accept it as an individual board member, so she will present it as a whole presentation. So that's in the future, but we'll get Travis up here to look where the bond markets are and to see if we want to incur debt for some county projects to be funded by the wind turbine property tax collection next year. So if anything else comes up, let me know, or Sheila, and we'll get it on the agenda. Otherwise, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Travis, motion by Scott, second by Travis to adjourn at 11:17. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carried.
Question for you. You want me to send around the contract without
Yeah, you
knowing?
can.
Do you have a deadline for us of when it needs to be back?
No, just get it to us.
Just get it whenever we can get it all signed?
You guys sign it first, right?
Yeah, we'll send it through all the libraries and have everybody sign it that needs to.
I'd say within a month, get it back to us so we can sign off on it. And
Sounds good. Thank
Make
you
it-
for your support.
Yeah, thank you.